We're going to talk about how to number the frets, and this is on page 6 of Dulcimer Songbag. Not all dulcimers are fretted the same, and not all dulcimers have the same number of strings. This old traditional one has 3 strings, therefore 3 pegs, and the only thing that is not traditional about the fretting is that the very oldest dulcimers only were fretted across the melody string or the chanter string because the other 2 strings were used only as drones. Of course, that has changed nowadays, and people like to play chords, and it's not that much more workmanship to have to make the frets all the way across the fingerboard. But we number the frets with the first fret that's maybe about 2 or 3 inches from the nut. This is the nut here that the strings come up from, and that's numbered 0, or also O for open. So open, 1, 2, 3. And 3 is the do for a major scale. Notice that frets 2 and 3 are close together. They're almost twice as close together as frets 1 and 2. That's because this is only a half step and that's a whole step. So 3, 4, 5, 6, and 5 and 6 are close together because that's a half step. 7, 8, 9, 10. 9 and 10 are close together. 11, 12, 13. 12 and 13 are close together. And then you may or may not have fret number 14. So that's the old way of fretting the dulcimer. Now, my original dulcimer, the frets were wire staples, and they only went all the way across for this one, and these were shorter. So I had it refretted, and I had it refretted the modern way with an extra fret here. So we're going to count those, and you'll see what happens. So we have the nut, or open, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 and a half, or 6 sharp. And you notice I've got it marked with a magic marker so that I don't get confused with that extra fret. Most of your dulcimers made after about 1970 have this extra fret in there to enable you to play a major scale from the open source or from fret 3, either way. And you can also play more chords that way. 6 and a half, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And I don't have the extra fret up here. Some dulcimers will have an extra fret. That's the octave above this 6 and a half. Now, being a more modern dulcimer with mechanical pegs and such, this one has 4 strings, and I have the nut and the bridge so that I can either play with 4 equidistant strings, or as most dulcimers are, you've got your bass string and your 2 lightweight strings, but this is the melody string and this is your other drone string. But the 2 melody strings are tuned in unison, as you would do with a mandolin. So we have open, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 sharp, or 6 and a half, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Got frets going all the way up to 17. But the only place that I have the extra fret is there. And this one is the same way. On your instrument, notice where you have inlays, decorative inlays. Often they are, there's a purpose for them. A lot of dulcimers have an inlay there because that's your dough, but this one just has a pretty rose inlay. But anyway, it's the same way of counting. Open, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6.5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Now I want you to show you one more thing. One more way that dulcimers are fretted. I don't have an instrument, I don't have a dulcimer like this, but this is a guidelin. It's a handmade folk instrument, and now you can see there's another fret down here. And many dulcimers are made this way. Many guitars are made this way. Guidelins are made this way, but not all. It's just a matter of choice of the builder. But at the origin, or the nut, there's another fret. Do not count that fret as fret number 1. That's still fret 0. And if you, the reason that counting the frets is so important as we learn the dulcimer is that so much of the dulcimer music is written in tablature with fret numbers. And so you need to know which fret you're playing. Notice that the frets on this instrument are chromatic. So each fret is a half step, so it looks different. Also, I can point out the pegs to you. This is another kind of mechanical peg that works pretty much like a friction peg in that to tighten the string, you move it that way. To loosen, you move it that way. And the same thing goes for the other side. So you need to experiment with your own instrument to know which way the pegs turn and which peg has which string attached to it. There really are no rules for that. It's usually more convenient to have the lowest string over here closest to the peg on this side. And then the middle string would be on, it could either be on this peg or that one. Doesn't really matter, just so that you know. But the strings that are on this side of the fretboard are going to use the pegs on this side of the head of the instrument. And that's up to you which one you use. You can make them so they don't cross one another.